The first sighting of the hollow planet was not subtle. Humanity didn't stumble upon it in quiet observation. It announced itself with the kind of presence that made the galaxy stop, if only for a heartbeat. The Krylax Dominion, who prided themselves on surveying millions of systems with cold, exacting precision, reported it as an anomaly at first, a glitch in their deep space sensors, something to be dismissed and archived. But when the readings confirmed it, every protocol they had enforced for millennia crumbled under the weight of impossibility. A planet larger than Neptune, but entirely hollow. Not a gaseous core hiding beneath clouds of hydrogen, not a cavernous planet with molten inner layers. Nothing. A vast, empty sphere drifting through the void. A shell of stone and metal, with a surface deceptively solid and yet a core that held nothing. The Krylax called it the Hollow One and immediately deemed it irrelevant, a cosmic accident without meaning. Their emissaries argued over it with the kind of casual arrogance only a species that had survived for eons could wield. Useless, they said, worthless, dangerous only for those who might underestimate its emptiness. They assumed no species could survive inside it, let alone find use for it. And yet that was exactly why humanity had been called. Humanity, small in number, underestimated, and yet endlessly audacious. Captain Elara Voss stood aboard the ISS Ardent, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic projection of the hollow sphere that dominated the command deck. Her hands rested on the railing, knuckles white, as she watched alien envoys argue in their metallic-toned language, voices scraping against the hull in waves of anger and disbelief. They spoke of physics, planetary formation, and theoretical impossibility, but she had learned to listen past the words. They were afraid. The Krylax never feared anything except the unknown that humans seemed to embrace. "Do we really have to watch them waste words?" Lieutenant Ree muttered, leaning against the console. His tone was casual, but there was a tremor beneath it, a hint of the awe that ran through every human on the Ardent. Elara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Humanity had never needed alien approval to act, and she was about to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The Ardent moved into orbit around the planet, its engines humming faintly, almost respectful of the enormity below. Even at a distance, the hollow sphere was overwhelming. Its surface reflected light in impossible ways, bending shadows across its curves, giving the impression that the stars themselves shimmered within its shell. Sensors swept the crust, confirming what no human could entirely comprehend: hollow, empty, infinite within. And yet, vibrations ran through the hull, subtle tremors like a heartbeat, almost imperceptible to instruments, yet palpable enough to press against the chest. The planet seemed aware. The humans on board sensed it, and somewhere in the void, the galaxy paused, watching, waiting to see what humanity would do next. "Sensors are picking up anomalies," the AI intoned in calm, neutral tones. "Gravity flux, energy surges, undefined structural formations. Recommend caution." Elara didn't flinch. Caution was for those who saw impossibility as a wall. Humans saw it as a doorway. "Prepare the shuttles," she said quietly. "We're going in, and whatever we find, we're taking it back with us." Outside, the Krylax Dominion erupted into a chorus of protest. Their projections flickered with urgency, their voices rising in a cacophony of alarm. "You cannot comprehend it," one envoy screamed. "Nothing survives within." But humans ignored them. They were never afraid to touch the untouchable, to step where no other species dared. That fear, that arrogance, it was theirs. Elara's crew suited up in magnetically reinforced exploration suits, each fitted with sensors, shields, and neural amplifiers to help process the anomalies ahead. They gathered at the shuttle bay, glancing at one another with a mixture of tension and exhilaration. No one spoke much. There was no need. The weight of history pressed against their shoulders. They were not just exploring a planet, they were entering a puzzle that had confounded a galactic empire. When the first shuttle detached from the Ardent, sliding through the void toward the hollow crust, the enormity of the space beyond it became apparent. There was no sky, no atmosphere to temper the light, only the reflective inner wall stretching into infinity. The crew felt vertigo as sensors failed to reconcile distance and scale. The hollow interior defied physics, bending space in subtle, shifting ways, corridors folding upon themselves, shadows stretching beyond comprehension. Then, the first anomaly struck. The gravity flux shifted abruptly. Drones that had been sent ahead to map the inner surface jerked violently, some spinning uncontrollably, others crashing into invisible walls. Alarms blared in the shuttles and the Ardent alike. The hollow planet was alive in some sense. Not biological, not mechanical, not in a way humans could categorize, but it was conscious. It noticed them, it reacted, and it was testing them. Elara felt her mind strain as she tried to process the patterns the planet projected, subtle light shifts, gravimetric pulses, faint vibrations through the hull. It was a language of intent, not sound, and slowly, the human brain began to recognize rhythm, pattern, invitation. The first steps onto the inner surface were surreal. The hollow planet stretched above them in a dome that seemed infinite, a curvature so vast it made even the largest city feel microscopic. Reflections played across the walls, and the shadows seemed to move of their own accord, bending toward the humans as if studying them. The crew's lights bounced across smooth surfaces that had no discernible origin, illuminating structures that appeared suspended in mid-air, floating alloys that defied gravity, glowing with energy the humans could only begin to theorize about. Lieutenant Rhee swallowed hard. "It's like it's alive," he said, his voice a whisper that carried in the silence around them. "I feel it." Elara nodded, eye scanning the horizon. "It is alive," she admitted, "and it knows we're here. We need to show it who we are, not just what we can do." Every human aboard had felt the sting of being underestimated by the galaxy, and in this hollow sphere, that perception was about to collide with reality. The Krylak's emissaries could only watch in horror as human drones adapted to the gravity shifts, human intuition navigating corridors that bent and folded without pattern, human determination pushing them deeper into the heart of the unknown. And deeper still, the hollow planet revealed fragments of its purpose. Vast chambers unfolded, revealing areas that could hold fleets, cities, and entire ecosystems in suspended stasis. Energy conduits pulsed faintly, suggesting a design intended to be interacted with. And at the center of one chamber, a structure floated, impossibly large, made of alloys unknown to science, glowing with subtle light, almost breathing. The resonance that radiated from it vibrated through the shuttles, the Ardent, and into the minds of the humans who dared approach. The hollow planet was not just empty, it had been waiting, and now humanity had arrived. A ripple of excitement ran through the crew, but it was tempered by fear. The planet had not yet revealed its full intent. And then, as if acknowledging their courage, the floating structure shifted, creating a corridor aligned perfectly with the human's path. It was deliberate, an invitation, or a test. Elara's lips pressed together. "This is what we were sent here to find," she whispered, "a chance to show what humans can do when the galaxy underestimates them." Outside, the Krylak's dominion seethed in disbelief. Every transmission from the Ardent was a blow to their arrogance. Every human maneuver within the hollow planet was a statement. Humanity could do what the galaxy deemed impossible. And as the first exploratory drones approached the floating structure, the hollow planet pulsed again, a deep resonance that pressed into the human mind, testing their courage, their ingenuity, their morality. And somewhere deep within, the presence within the hollow sphere waited, aware, evaluating, and ready to decide if humanity was the species it had been waiting for.
Then, just as the humans prepared to step further into the inner sanctum, the planet shivered violently, a tremor that warped the walls, folding space in impossible ways, and a shadow moved across the inner surface, immense, deliberate, and impossibly aware. The resonance pressed against their minds like a living hand, a warning, a challenge, and in that instant, every human aboard felt it. The hollow planet was not just empty, it had been waiting, and now humanity had arrived.
The shadow moved first like a ripple, then like intention, stretching across the inner walls of the hollow sphere in ways that made sensors scream in confusion and sanity strain against perception. The Ardent trembled in orbit above, its hull resonating faintly as though acknowledging the awakening of something far larger than itself. Inside, Elara Vos and her team stepped cautiously, every footfall magnified in a space that defied comprehension, a void that seemed infinite in every direction. The humans had already witnessed the impossible, corridors folding like origami, gravity that bent in loops and curves, reflections that did not match reality. Yet nothing prepared them for this, the presence inside the hollow planet, enormous and fluid, moving not through physical space, but awareness. It was a consciousness without form, a mind without brain, yet undeniably observing, evaluating, weighing their every thought, every reaction. Lieutenant Rhee swallowed hard, gripping his pulse rifle tighter, though he knew it was useless against something like this. "It watches," he whispered. "I can feel it in my chest." Elara nodded. "We knew it would. That's why we're here. No one else has the nerve or the imagination to interact with this." The resonance built slowly, like the deep thrum of a cosmic heart, vibrating in the hull, through the shuttle, through the human nervous system. It was asking questions, not in words, but in intent. And humans, for all their seeming fragility, had the one thing the galaxy had not prepared them to offer: unpredictable, adaptive thought. The first exploratory drones approached the massive floating construct, their instruments flickering under the pressure of incomprehensible physics. Gravity shifted unexpectedly, pulling them upward, then sideways, before releasing them as if the hollow sphere were testing dexterity rather than force. Elara's team watched, their neural amplifiers recording the chaotic data, translating patterns into something resembling comprehension. She leaned over a console, eyes narrowing. "It's teaching us," she said. "Not showing, teaching. It's making sure we can handle what comes next." The shadow surged again, a movement so rapid it seemed instantaneous, and the walls of the hollow planet folded inward, compressing corridors, and then releasing them in a new arrangement. The humans adapted instinctively, their muscles, instincts, and reasoning working in tandem. Where alien empires would have failed, humanity succeeded. That was the beginning of what the Krylax could not understand. Humanity did not see emptiness as a limit, they saw it as a canvas. Deeper into the hollow sphere, the first chamber opened before them, a vast expanse that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. The floating structure revealed more of its form, lattices of unknown alloys, energy conduits pulsing faintly, and what appeared to be a control nexus at its center, suspended mid-air without any visible support. Instruments could barely measure the energy, but the humans instinctively understood that every movement, every decision here mattered. Elara approached the nexus cautiously, her team behind her, aware that the hollow planet was alive with observation. And then the first communication came, not through words, not through sound, but directly into thought. "Why do you approach?" it asked. Not a question, a probe, a test, a challenge. Elara closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts, letting humanity speak through her mind. "We approach because we see possibility where others see nothing, because we take what is impossible and make it real, because we are human." The resonance pulsed again,
the chamber's lattice shimmering with a new intensity, patterns flowing along the walls in a language no human could speak, but all could understand. "You are unusual," the hollow sphere replied. It vibrated through their very bones, a weighty observation that pressed upon consciousness. Unpredictable, capable of comprehension and action beyond expectation. You may proceed. Relief rippled through the crew, but it was tempered by awareness of the stakes. The planet was evaluating them, testing them, measuring whether humanity's audacity, curiosity, and adaptability were worthy of engagement with something far larger than any civilization had ever faced. As they advanced, the chamber unfolded further, revealing vaults that could store cities, suspended ecosystems, energy conduits that pulsed with the potential to power civilizations, and chambers that seemed designed for experimentation on scales that dwarfed human imagination. Every inch of the hollow planet radiated intelligence. Every movement suggested deliberate design. Every shimmer in the walls felt like attention, awareness, scrutiny. Lieutenant Ree paused, staring at one of the vaults. This could hold 100 Earths," he murmured. 1,000. We could build anything here. Elara's jaw tightened. "That's exactly what it's offering us, and the Krylak's Dominion will never forgive it." Outside, the alien council seethed, their projections flickering with outrage. "They cannot comprehend it. It is not meant for living beings," one hissed, voice crackling in frustration. "It is a trap," another warned, but the humans ignored it. They had never waited for permission, never sought approval from those who assumed dominance through longevity. Humanity thrived in challenges that seemed impossible. That was their edge, and the hollow planet was about to teach them more than any textbook, any empire, any alien archive ever could. The resonance intensified. The shadow moved again, larger, more deliberate, as if preparing for contact. Gravity fluctuated violently, drawing the humans slightly off the floor, then releasing them. The floating structure pulsed, signaling an invitation, a path deeper into the planet's core. Elara's pulse quickened. She knew what the Krylaks would never accept. Humans were about to become something more than explorers. They were becoming participants in a machine, or perhaps a consciousness that existed on a scale they could barely imagine. And then, for the first time, a voice of warning came from within the hollow sphere, faint but unmistakable. Not all may survive the next step. Every human froze. Fear collided with exhilaration. The planet had given them opportunity, yes, but it had also given them danger. And humanity did not retreat from danger. They adapted. They advanced. "Prepare to move," Elara ordered. "We don't back down. Not now, not ever." As they approached the next chamber, a cascade of energy swept through the floors, walls, and ceilings, rippling in fractal patterns, pulling and pushing against their perception of space itself. The ardent trembled above, instruments on the verge of collapse. The hollow planet had revealed only a fraction of itself, and the humans had already begun to understand that they were inside something unimaginable, something that could redefine existence. And the shadow loomed closer, immense and aware, almost as if it were breathing, waiting for humanity's next move. "This is it," Elara whispered, feeling the resonance hum through her chest. "The first true test." And as the humans crossed the threshold into the chamber's inner sanctum, a surge of energy ripped through the void, bending light, gravity, and perception, and for a heartbeat, every human felt the terrifying, exhilarating truth. The hollow planet was alive, and it had chosen to notice them.
The moment they stepped into the inner sanctum, the scale of the hollow planet revealed itself fully. It was no longer a chamber, no longer a corridor, no longer something that could be measured by human standards.
It was an expanse of infinite possibilities, a cathedral of voids layered upon voids, each suspended in ways that defied physics and logic. Gravity rippled like waves across the floor, sometimes pulling them sideways, sometimes releasing them into weightless suspension for seconds that felt like minutes. The team clung to magnetic grips and rails, their suits straining to compensate as instruments continued to falter. Yet amidst the chaos, every human felt it. An awareness, something immense observing, not judging yet, but calculating. It was patient, deliberate, and terrifying in its patience. Elara's mind raced. They were not just exploring, they were being tested. The resonance pulsed with a rhythm now, not irregular or chaotic, but steady, like a heartbeat, a signal that the hollow planet was alive in a way that could be understood if they could think like it, move like it, feel like it. And humans, more than any other species, could do that. Lieutenant Ree's voice broke the tension, quiet but urgent. "Captain, sensors are picking up something else, something embedded in the structure. I can't define it. Energy readings are off the charts." Elara leaned over the console, her eyes narrowing as she studied the flickering displays. "Then we find out what it is. Humanity didn't get this far by following rules. We make them." The team pressed forward. Every step they took was mirrored by subtle shifts in the hollow planet's interior. Sections of the floor floated up, forming pathways, walls rotated imperceptibly, ceilings stretched and compressed, creating tunnels where none existed before. Every movement, every decision was a dialogue, silent and invisible, between humans and the consciousness that had been waiting for intelligence capable of perceiving it. And then, as they reached the first node of the central construct, the shadow emerged fully. It was immense, a mass of consciousness that defied form, shape, or size, moving in ways that made the human mind strain to process. Instruments went haywire, and even the ardent above, designed to withstand the void's worst anomalies, trembled as though it too recognized the significance of what was happening. The shadow communicated again, not in words, but in understanding. "Why are you here?" it probed. The resonance pulsed through their minds, asking more than one question at a time, layering intent and curiosity in a way humans had never encountered. Elara stepped forward, placing a hand on the nearest magnetic grip. Her voice, when it came, was steady. "We're here because we explore, because we see opportunity where others see emptiness, because we are human." The hollow planet responded almost immediately. Sections of the inner sanctum shifted, revealing structures suspended in midair, lattices, chambers, conduits glowing with energy beyond comprehension. It wasn't just giving them data, it was giving them a workspace, a laboratory, a domain to interact with, to manipulate. The resonance intensified. The shadow pulsed in agreement, or perhaps in calculation. It was testing whether humanity could handle more than observation, whether they could act in ways that were both intelligent and moral, capable of adapting to something that functioned on a scale far beyond any empire's technology. As the team advanced, they discovered pods suspended in the void, containing stasis chambers filled with organisms, energy matrices, and constructs that hinted at civilizations long extinct. Some had been abandoned, others left intact, preserved, and the scale was staggering. One chamber could hold more life than an entire galaxy could sustain. Lieutenant Ree's breath caught. This isn't just a planet, it's a repository, a tool, a gift." Elara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Or a test," she said. "Every gift has conditions." Outside, the Krylak's dominion erupted in frustration. "They cannot manipulate it," one envoy screamed. "It is not meant for them. They will fail." But the humans ignored the interference. They had already surpassed the limitations that empires tried to impose upon them. Their minds, instincts, and creativity allowed them to see what others could not. Where the Krylak saw emptiness, humans saw potential.
The resonance pulsed again, stronger this time. Gravity shifted violently, pulling them toward the floating construct. Panels of unknown metal rose to meet them, forming pathways, control nodes, and interfaces that had no visible connection. And the shadow moved in tandem, a presence that was not hostile, but observant, aware, and deeply intelligent. Elara extended her hand toward one of the floating nodes. The moment she touched it, a surge of information flooded her mind. Energy schematics, structural layouts, histories of civilizations, mathematical models of realities she could barely comprehend. The planet was teaching them, not by words, but by direct interaction. It was sharing its knowledge, layering understanding over instinct, testing them, forcing humans to rise to a level of cognition beyond what even their species had achieved before. "This is," whispered one scientist, voice trembling, "this is beyond anything we've ever imagined." Elara nodded. "Yes, and we survive because we're human. We adapt, we take what is impossible and make it possible." The shadow pulsed again, stronger now, almost like a heartbeat, and then it spoke, more clearly than ever, directly into their minds. "You are not what I expected. You may proceed, but be warned, your choices will define whether you are worthy of my gift." A chill ran through every human aboard the Ardent and within the planet. The hollow sphere, for all its incomprehensible scale and intelligence, had not yet revealed its limits. And humanity had to prove not only that they could navigate the impossible, but that they could act with vision, morality, and courage under pressure that would crush lesser species. Then came the first challenge. A massive energy surge rippled through the chamber, bending light and gravity simultaneously. The pathways shifted violently, and for a moment, humans floated helplessly as magnetic grips failed and instruments overloaded. And then the resonance shifted, almost mocking, almost guiding. Pathways stabilized, gravity normalized in the areas humans could navigate, and the floating construct opened a new corridor, revealing chambers filled with energy, suspended ecosystems, and what looked like dormant machines designed to respond to conscious interaction. "It's showing us the next stage," Lieutenant Ree whispered. "Whatever this is, it's preparing us." Ilara's jaw tightened. "Then we step forward. Humanity survives by taking steps others refuse to take. Every empire, every species would have fled long ago. Not us, not now." And as the team advanced toward the next chamber, the shadow followed, immense, fluid, aware, yet patient. The hollow planet pulsed in anticipation, and the humans felt it. This was no longer just exploration. They were participants, players in a test that would determine whether humanity could wield the incomprehensible, whether they could transform emptiness into creation, and whether they could survive a consciousness that had waited millennia for a species brave enough to challenge it. Then the first unexpected event struck. Energy surged violently from the planet's core, sending waves that bent perception, warped the corridors, and threatened to separate the team in a void of incomprehensible scale. Instruments overloaded, drones went dark, and the shadow loomed even closer, as if the hollow planet itself were taking notice of every human reaction. "Hold your positions," Elara shouted. "We do not falter, not now, not ever." And in that instant, as the corridors twisted and pulsed, as energy cascaded like living fire, the resonance spoke in one unmistakable impression. "You may shape what is empty, but first, prove you deserve to touch it." Humanity understood the challenge. It was not just survival, it was mastery. And the hollow planet, vast, intelligent, and patient, had chosen them to rise or fail.
The surge passed, leaving the hollow planet trembling softly, like a pulse receding after a heartbeat. The crew of the Ardent adjusted their grips, their suits' stabilizers humming as they recovered from the violent distortions of space and gravity. Every member of the team was acutely aware that nothing in the galaxy had prepared them for this. This was not just exploration, this was communion with a consciousness on a planetary scale, one that could manipulate matter, energy, and perception with ease, and yet allowed humans to proceed. Elara moved first, steady and deliberate, her eyes scanning the vast expanse before them. The next chamber was unlike anything they had seen. Massive platforms of unknown alloys floated mid-air, connected by energy bridges that shimmered with shifting colors, corridors bending impossibly upward and downward simultaneously. Light here had no source and no shadow, yet every detail was vivid, every surface clear. "This is incredible," whispered one of the scientists, her voice trembling in awe. "It's a laboratory, a city, a vault of knowledge." "And it's ours to understand," Elara replied, her mind racing. She could already feel the endless possibilities. The chamber could hold entire civilizations. It could sustain life. It could generate technologies no empire had dreamed of, all if humanity had the skill and insight to harness it. The shadow stirred, a ripple of awareness that traveled through the hollow sphere, brushing against the human minds like a test of courage and ingenuity. It was curious, observant. It had waited millennia for intelligence that could perceive not just its surface, but its potential. "It's watching us," Lieutenant Rhys said, voice tight, "and judging." Elara nodded, "and we're going to show it why humanity survives." They proceeded with caution, each movement deliberate, testing pathways, touching energy conduits, analyzing materials that responded to thought as much to touch. The hollow planet seemed to anticipate every human action, shifting, pulsing, guiding, and challenging them. The floating construct ahead loomed larger now, revealing intricate patterns, nodes that responded when approached, and what appeared to be control interfaces designed for conscious interaction. As Elara extended her hand to a floating panel, the planet resonated directly into her mind. Images, data, possibilities, histories of civilizations long gone, flashes of creation, destruction, and knowledge beyond human comprehension. She gasped, but did not falter. "It's teaching us," she whispered. "It's showing what we could do if we understand it, if we rise to it." The resonance pulsed again, stronger, almost insistent. The shadow moved closer, a presence that seemed aware of human thought patterns, testing their capacity for adaptation, morality, and ingenuity. Suddenly, a new chamber opened to the side, revealing a vast void filled with suspended spheres, each one containing miniature ecosystems, energy grids, or constructs that reacted to the presence of life. It was a catalog of potential, of experimentation, of creation. Lieutenant Rhys stared, wide-eyed. This could house entire species, entire civilizations. It's limitless. Ilara's gaze hardened, and that is exactly why the Krylax were fear us. They cannot comprehend potential executed by a species they deem insignificant. The hollow planet pulsed again, sending ripples of gravity through the chamber. Some humans floated momentarily before gravity normalized, testing their instinct, their resilience, their capacity to adapt. The shadow moved with precision, watching, responding, calculating. "It's a test," one scientist finally said, voice trembling. "It's determining whether we deserve access to it all." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Then we pass it. That's what humans do. We don't wait for permission. We don't hesitate in the face of impossibility. We adapt, we survive, we master." As they approached the central nexus, the shadow surged, sending a wave of energy that bent perception, twisted gravity, and fractured the air with shimmering distortions. Alarms on the Ardent blared in orbit, instruments overloaded, and even the most advanced AI struggled to keep up with the planet's subtle manipulations. Yet humanity persisted. They moved as one, instinct and intellect aligned, their neural amplifiers translating chaos into comprehension. And at the heart of the chamber, the construct revealed its final test.
massive energy conduits connected to floating panels, all responsive to thought, emotion, and intent. Any miscalculation could trigger cascading failures, destroy energy grids, or collapse entire sections of the hollow sphere. The shadow loomed above, immense and patient, observing whether the humans could act with vision, precision, and morality. Elara stepped forward, placing both hands on the nearest node.
Her mind reached out, instinctively connecting with the resonance, feeling the energy flow, mapping the networks, sensing the intent behind every shift. "We do not take lightly what we touch," she thought. "We are here to learn, to create, to survive. We are human." The planet responded immediately, a pulse of energy flowing through the construct, stabilizing pathways, opening corridors, revealing chambers that could house fleets, sustain life, and store knowledge beyond comprehension. The shadow shifted, acknowledging their understanding, yet pressing them further, testing their ability to shape the hollow sphere without destruction, to wield its power responsibly. Outside, the Krylak's dominions seethed, unable to comprehend humanity's capacity to adapt, manipulate, and thrive in the impossible. "They are meddling with forces beyond comprehension," one envoy screeched. "They cannot survive this." But humanity ignored them. They never sought approval. They never waited for permission. Where others saw emptiness, humans saw opportunity. And opportunity, they understood instinctively, required action. The chamber pulsed again, energy cascading through corridors, floating platforms shifting, walls bending. The shadow moved with subtle intent, testing whether the humans could harmonize with the hollow planet's consciousness, whether they could act with creativity, morality, and foresight. Elara extended her hand to a central control panel. The moment she touched it, data, histories, and possibilities flooded her mind. Civilizations created and lost, technologies advanced and abandoned, energy systems that dwarfed entire fleets, and warnings of what would happen if intelligence misused what was offered. She staggered slightly, but held firm. "We can do this," she whispered. "We have to. Humanity survives because we rise to what others fear." The shadow pulsed, almost approvingly, as the hollow planet opened yet another chamber, a colossal void filled with what seemed like dormant constructs, ecosystems, and energy networks suspended in the gravity-defying expanse. Each responded to thought, each waited for conscious interaction. And as Elara's team advanced, the resonance pressed against their minds like a challenge. Prove that you can create, adapt, and survive in a space that bends reality itself. Lieutenant Ree gasped. This is limitless. Everything we've ever imagined we can do here. We could change the galaxy with this." Elara nodded. "Exactly. And the Krylaks will never forget it. They dismissed emptiness. They never imagined humans could fill it." And then a sudden pulse erupted from the planet's core, stronger than any before. Gravity twisted violently, energy surged through the chamber, and the shadow moved closer, immense and deliberate. The hollow planet had one final question. Could humanity survive when chaos itself became a test? Elara's hand tightened on the panel. "We will not falter. We will adapt. We will master it. We are human." The resonance pulsed, waves cascading through the hollow sphere, and in that instant, every human felt it. The hollow planet was not just a vessel, a laboratory, or a repository. It was alive. It had been waiting. And now humanity had proven, even in the face of incomprehensible chaos, that they were worthy of its attention. But the shadow loomed closer, immense, aware, and patient, as if to whisper a warning that humanity had not yet understood. The planet had chosen them, but had humanity chosen correctly? And in the silence that followed, one truth became clear to all who had entered. This was only the beginning. The silence after the surge was deafening, yet the hollow planet thrummed with hidden energy, a pulse beneath the perception of the human senses, like a heartbeat felt rather than heard. Every human aboard the Ardent and within the inner sanctum sensed it, a weight pressing on their minds, a challenge without words. The shadow had withdrawn slightly, but the presence lingered, immense and patient, watching every calculation, every instinct, every emotional response. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the resonance coil within her chest like a living thing. She looked at her team, each member wide-eyed, adrenaline and awe tangled with fear. "This is what we were sent for," she said, voice steady but carrying the weight of certainty. "This is what humans do. We face what others flee from, we see what others ignore, and we survive." The team moved cautiously through the chamber, following shifting pathways that formed in response to their presence. Platforms floated toward them, rotating to create stable surfaces where none had existed before. Energy bridges hummed under their feet, pulsing gently as if alive, as if acknowledging human intent. Lieutenant Ree's hand hovered over a floating panel, his neural amplifier interpreting the pulses, patterns, and vibrations into actionable insight. "Captain, this is a control interface," he said. "It's not mechanical, it's conscious. It responds to thought, not touch. It adapts to intention, and it's massive, more data than we could process in a lifetime." Elara nodded, her eyes scanning the floating nodes that extended like veins through the hollow chamber. "Then we adapt," she said simply. "We always adapt. That's what humanity is." As they navigated the chamber, the hollow planet responded, gravity shifting, corridors folding, energy flows redirecting. Every change seemed purposeful, designed to test comprehension, coordination, and morality. The shadow moved with them, not menacing, but probing, watching how they reacted under pressure and uncertainty. Then, a new structure emerged from the void, a series of interlocking rings floating in perfect alignment, glowing faintly with internal energy. They rotated slowly as if waiting for the humans to discover the rhythm, to understand the sequence, to interact correctly. Elara stepped forward cautiously. "This is deliberate," she said. "It's a test, and it's not just about survival, it's about understanding." Lieutenant Ree hesitated. "If we make a mistake, what happens?" The silence answered him. There was no threat, no aggression, yet the weight of potential consequences pressed upon every mind. The hollow planet could destroy them with a thought, collapse the entire inner structure, erase their presence entirely, yet it had not. That in itself was the first lesson. Respect, intelligence, and vision mattered here more than brute force. Elara extended her hand toward the first ring, concentrating on the rhythm, feeling the subtle pulses of energy and intention. Slowly, the ring responded, rotating to align with her movement. One by one, the interlocking rings began to shift in harmony with human thought, their motions synchronized with intent, understanding, and awareness. The resonance intensified, brushing against every mind like encouragement. "It's acknowledging us," one scientist whispered. "It's letting us interact. It's teaching." Elara felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The hollow planet was not merely a playground. It was an opportunity, a challenge, and a responsibility. Every decision, every movement, every interpretation could have consequences beyond comprehension. Yet humanity did what it had always done. It acted, it adapted, it mastered. As the rings aligned, a corridor opened, leading to a massive chamber filled with floating spheres, energy conduits, and dormant ecosystems suspended mid-air. Each sphere contained potential, constructs, life forms, energy matrices, tools of creation waiting for conscious interaction. Lieutenant Ree swallowed hard.
We could create entire civilizations here, or destroy them. The scale, it's terrifying. Elara's jaw tightened. Then we choose carefully. That is what humans do. We take the impossible and shape it responsibly. As they explored, the hollow planet pulsed more strongly, responding to the team's interactions, subtly rearranging itself to create paths, chambers, and opportunities. The shadow moved closer, immense and aware, testing not physical skill, but judgment, creativity, and morality. And then came the first true revelation. A suspended panel of energy activated under Elara's touch, transmitting a flood of data, images, and possibilities directly into her mind. Histories of civilizations that had interacted with the hollow planet long before humans arrived. Archives of knowledge so vast that the brain struggled to process even fragments. Yet within the flood of information came warnings. Misuse, arrogance, or indifference, any of these could lead to destruction.
The hollow planet had endured for millennia, waiting for a species that could act with intelligence, foresight, and restraint. And humans were proving themselves worthy. "Captain," Lieutenant Rhee said, voice tight, "it's showing us what we can do here. We could store fleets, entire species, even energy systems that surpass entire empires." Elara nodded, absorbing the immensity of the revelation. "And that is why the Krylax will never forgive us. They dismissed it as empty. They never imagined humans could see what could be done with emptiness." The shadow pulsed, and a new chamber revealed itself, an enormous void filled with floating platforms, conduits, and suspended ecosystems. Each reacted instantly to human presence, energy flowing where humans intended, structures aligning with thought and purpose. Elara's hand hovered over one interface, neural amplifier interpreting the complex signals with near-perfect accuracy. She felt the hollow planet's awareness probing her mind, asking not only if she could comprehend its scale, but if humanity could act responsibly. She thought firmly, "We are human. We adapt. We survive. We create responsibly. We do not destroy what we do not understand. We will rise to this." The resonance shifted, stronger now, pulses cascading through the hollow planet's inner structure. Gravity stabilized, pathways aligned, floating constructs reoriented to allow safe passage, and the shadow moved aside just enough to let the humans proceed deeper. Lieutenant Rhee exhaled, voice trembling. "We've passed something. It's letting us interact on a level no one else could." Elara's eyes were fixed on the vast chamber ahead. "This is only the beginning. Humanity survives because we face the impossible, because we see opportunity where others see emptiness. And now, the hollow planet is ours to understand." Outside, the Krylax Dominion seethed in disbelief. Their data feeds showed humans navigating a void that should have been fatal, interacting with intelligence that should have been incomprehensible, and surviving every test the hollow sphere presented. "They cannot survive," one envoy screamed. "It is beyond their capacity." But the humans ignored the alien council, as they always did. They never waited for permission. They never sought approval. They adapted. They persisted. They mastered. And within the inner sanctum of the hollow planet, a final pulse rippled through the void, gravity twisting violently, energy cascading like living fire, corridors bending beyond comprehension. The shadow loomed closer, immense, aware, deliberate. The resonance pressed against every mind, testing judgment, morality, creativity, and courage under pressure unlike any other. And then it delivered the challenge, a single, silent impression. Prove that you can wield the impossible without destroying it.
Every human froze, feeling the weight of the hollow planet's expectation, the enormity of its consciousness pressing against their very being. And in that suspended heartbeat, Elara understood the truth. The hollow planet had chosen them not because of strength, not because of dominance, but because humanity alone could see emptiness not as a void, but as a canvas. The next steps would define not only their survival, but the future of every species in the galaxy. And in that instant, the resonance pulsed, the shadow lingered, and humanity took its first deliberate action toward mastery of the hollow planet.
The chamber ahead was alive in ways that no human language could ever describe. It pulsed, it breathed, it shifted, yet it held itself in perfect equilibrium, a dance of structure and chaos that seemed impossible to exist without the hollow planet's awareness guiding every motion. The team advanced cautiously, their magnetic grips anchoring them as corridors twisted and floors shifted. But each movement was deliberate, measured, and instinctively correct. Every step felt like a conversation, a negotiation with the presence that dominated the void, a silent dialogue of intent and comprehension. Lieutenant Ree's neural amplifier flickered erratically as it tried to process the surges of energy and data streaming directly into their minds. "Captain," he said, voice tense, "the planet, it's testing more than intelligence now. It's testing judgment. It's pushing us to make decisions that could affect entire ecosystems, entire civilizations." Elara's eyes narrowed. "Then we rise to it. Humanity has never been defined by fear, only by the courage to act when others hesitate." The resonance shifted, vibrating through the hull, the floors, and the minds of the humans like a heartbeat expanding and contracting in unison. Sections of the chamber moved, revealing vast vaults filled with energy conduits, suspended ecosystems, and dormant constructs of unknown purpose. They floated in perfect alignment, as if waiting for a species capable of understanding them to arrive. The shadow emerged again, immense, fluid, its form shifting in ways that defied perception, observing every movement, every choice, every instinct. It did not speak in words. It did not need to. Its awareness was enough to communicate understanding, judgment, curiosity, and challenge simultaneously. "It's alive," whispered one scientist, her voice tight with awe and fear. "Not just conscious, alive in ways we cannot measure." Elara nodded. "And it's letting us in because it recognizes something in us, something no other species has shown it." They approached the first of the suspended control nodes. As Elara's hand touched it, the resonance surged directly into her mind. Images, histories, schematics, energy flows, ecological models, all beyond human comprehension, flashed at impossible speed. But the human mind adapted, instinctively interpreting, synthesizing, and responding. The hollow planet was teaching them, testing them, challenging them to rise to levels of understanding no species had ever reached. "It's showing us how to interact with it," Ree murmured, "how to manipulate its energy, its gravity, its structure, responsibly." Elara's gaze swept over the team. "And that is why we were chosen. Not strength, not numbers, not technology alone, but because we can imagine what others cannot, because we can act where others freeze, because we are human." The shadow pulsed again, responding to intent, guiding subtly, nudging pathways to align, energy flows to stabilize, chambers to open. The hollow planet was a living laboratory, a repository, a vessel, and it was giving them the tools to shape it. But the resonance carried a warning, subtle yet undeniable. Misuse, arrogance, or misjudgment could unravel everything. Outside, the Krylak's dominion seethed. Their data feed showed humans navigating the impossible, interacting with intelligence far beyond their comprehension, surviving every anomaly, and adapting to challenges that would have destroyed any other species. "Impossible!" one envoy screamed. "They should have perished in the first hour." But humanity ignored the counsel. As always, they had never waited for permission. They adapted, they persisted, they mastered.
Deeper into the chamber, the humans found suspended spheres containing dormant ecosystems. Within them were life forms, energy grids, and constructs capable of generating technologies far beyond the reach of any known civilization. Each sphere reacted to presence, to thought, to conscious intent, and humanity was beginning to understand how to harmonize with them, to manipulate them responsibly, to act with foresight. Lieutenant Rees gasped. We could create entire civilizations here, entire fleets, entire systems. Elara's eyes hardened, and that is why the Krylax will fear us. They dismissed emptiness. They never imagined humans could see what could be done with it. The shadow moved closer, immense and aware, testing their judgment, creativity, and morality under conditions of chaos and incomprehensible scale. Then came the first true challenge. Energy surged violently from the planet's core, bending light, gravity, and perception simultaneously. Floating platforms twisted, corridors folded, and suspended constructs began to oscillate violently. Instruments on the Ardent overloaded.
Drones failed. Humans struggled to maintain stability as magnetic grips strained against unpredictable forces. Elara's voice cut through the chaos. Hold your positions! Adapt! Survive! Every human reacted instinctively. Neural amplifiers synced with intent. Instruments interpreted chaos into action, and the team moved as one, a single organism adapting to impossible circumstances. The shadow pulsed, massive and deliberate, evaluating every choice, every movement, every reaction. The hollow planet had revealed that it was not merely a repository or vessel, but a challenge. Could humanity survive, adapt, and act responsibly under pressure that would destroy lesser species? And humanity, as always, rose. The floating construct stabilized, gravity normalized, energy flows realigned, and corridors opened into the next chamber. The resonance vibrated stronger than ever, sending waves of comprehension and possibility into human minds. They had passed the first true test. Yet the shadow remained, immense, aware, patient, its presence a reminder that mastery was not yet complete. This is only the beginning, Elara said quietly, looking at the vast void ahead. The hollow planet has shown us its potential, but the real test is whether we can wield it responsibly, whether we can imagine and create where others fail. The chamber pulsed again, gravity shifting subtly, energy bridges forming pathways to areas previously hidden. The hollow planet was alive, aware, and waiting for humanity to prove itself at every level: thought, action, and morality. Outside, the Krylax dominion seethed in disbelief and anger. They are meddling with forces beyond comprehension. They cannot survive this, one envoy screamed. But humanity ignored them. They never sought permission. They never hesitated. They adapted. They persisted. They mastered. And within the inner sanctum, the shadow loomed, immense, aware, and deliberate. The hollow planet had chosen humanity to rise to the impossible. But the question remained, could they shape it without destroying it? Could they turn emptiness into creation without succumbing to arrogance, error, or fear? Elara took a deep breath, feeling the resonance coil in her chest. "We will not falter," she whispered. "We are human. We survive. We adapt. We create. And we will master this." The hollow planet pulsed in acknowledgement, corridors shifting, chambers realigning, energy flows harmonizing. And in that moment, every human aboard the Ardent and within the hollow planet understood one truth. They were no longer mere explorers. They were participants in the awakening of something vast, intelligent, and patient. They had been chosen. And what came next would define not just their survival, but the destiny of every species that ever dared to look at emptiness and imagine possibility. The pulse of the hollow planet continued, deep and rhythmic,
resonating through the floating chambers, the suspended platforms, and every human mind attuned to its awareness. It was no longer just testing them, it was offering them a glimpse of what could be achieved within its infinite expanse. Elara felt it pressing against her thoughts, probing not for mistakes, but for creativity, morality, and vision. The chamber ahead had grown vast beyond comprehension, corridors spiraling into infinity, floors folding upon themselves, and floating constructs shimmering with energy that humans could almost, but not entirely, perceive. "It's giving us the chance to shape it," Lieutenant Reese said, voice tense with awe. "Everything we do, everything we imagine, it responds, it reacts. It trusts us in a way I never thought possible." Elara nodded, moving carefully along a gravity-stabilized bridge. Trust is earned, not given, and it has recognized that humans are capable of earning it. The team proceeded, their neural amplifiers translating the subtle shifts of energy and intent into actionable insight. Panels of unknown alloys rotated to align with their actions, energy conduits pulsed to direct focus, and chambers shifted to create optimal pathways. The hollow planet was alive, aware, and it was teaching them the rhythm of its existence. And then the first warning came. Not a surge of energy, not a distortion of gravity, but a silent impression in their minds, a warning of consequences, a hint that misuse could unravel the delicate balance the planet maintained. Elara froze for a heartbeat. "It's reminding us," she whispered, "creation without responsibility can destroy everything." Lieutenant Ree swallowed hard. "Everything here, everything we've seen, one wrong move and we could collapse it all." Elara's gaze hardened. "Then we act deliberately, carefully, intelligently. That is humanity." They approached a series of massive spheres suspended in the void, each glowing with dormant energy, containing constructs, ecosystems, or technologies beyond human comprehension. Touching one activated it, sending surges of data and patterns into their minds. They realized almost immediately that each sphere was a microcosm, a test of their ability to manage complexity, life, and potential simultaneously. "It's asking us to interact responsibly," one scientist said, "to demonstrate that we can wield power without destruction." Elara nodded. "We've been underestimated before. The galaxy has doubted us, mocked us, feared us. Here we prove why we should never be underestimated again." The shadow moved again, immense and deliberate, flowing along the inner walls, its awareness brushing against every human thought. It was observing their judgment, their morality, their capacity for foresight. The pulse of the hollow planet intensified, corridors folding in on themselves, platforms rotating, gravity shifting in ways designed to challenge perception and coordination. And humanity rose to the challenge.
Every step, every touch, every decision was precise, adaptive, and deliberate. Neural amplifiers translated chaos into understanding. Instincts guided movements, and intent aligned with action. The shadow pulsed, almost approvingly, as humans synchronized with the hollow planet, proving they could navigate and manipulate an environment far beyond any previous measure of intelligence. Then, a new revelation. One of the suspended spheres split into multiple layers, revealing interconnected ecosystems, energy grids, and dormant machines that had never been activated before. They responded only to human thought and intent, pulsing with potential and waiting for conscious guidance. We could change everything here," Lieutenant Ree said, awe-stricken. "Entire civilizations, entire systems, energy flows that surpass entire empires. We have the means to create beyond imagination." Elara's jaw tightened. "And that is why the Krylax will fear us. They dismissed it as nothing. They never imagined humans could fill emptiness with purpose." The shadow moved closer, enormous, fluid, and aware. Its presence pressed against the human minds like a reminder that mastery required intelligence, morality, and foresight. Every choice mattered. Every misstep could undo what they had begun. Yet humanity did not hesitate. They adapted, they persisted, they mastered. And then came the test unlike any before. Energy surged from the planet's core, bending corridors, twisting gravity, and distorting perception. Floating platforms oscillated violently. Panels of unknown alloys shifted unpredictably. Instruments overloaded. Drones faltered. The hollow planet had escalated its challenge, forcing humans to act with precision, creativity, and morality simultaneously under chaos. Elara shouted orders, every word carrying authority and clarity. Focus, adapt, synchronize. Humanity survives through courage and ingenuity. Neural amplifiers worked overtime, instincts guided action, and the team moved as one, harmonizing with the hollow planet's energy flows. The shadow pulsed in acknowledgement, corridors stabilized, energy conduits aligned, and the suspended spheres responded to human intent. The test had been passed, but the presence lingered, immense and deliberate, as if preparing the humans for something beyond even this demonstration of skill and morality. Then a silent understanding filled their minds. The hollow planet had chosen them not for their strength, not for their dominance, not for their technology, but for their capacity to imagine, to act, and to create where others only saw emptiness. And as the resonance reached a crescendo, the chambers shifted, aligning pathways to a central nexus of unprecedented scale. The suspended constructs, ecosystems, and energy grids pulsed in harmony, as though acknowledging the arrival of species worthy of creation, of stewardship, of potential. Elara's hand hovered over the central interface, aware that the next step would define not only their survival, but the future of every civilization that would ever interact with this hollow planet. We are human, she thought, feeling the resonance coil in her chest. We adapt, we survive, we create, and we will master this. The shadow lingered, immense, aware, and deliberate, as if measuring the truth of her declaration. And in that heartbeat of anticipation, the humans understood. The hollow planet was no longer a test, it was a responsibility. The infinite possibilities lay before them, and the galaxy would never see anything like what humanity was about to create. Outside, the Krylax Dominion roared in frustration and disbelief, unable to comprehend what was unfolding. But humanity ignored them. They never waited for permission. They never hesitated. They adapted. They persisted. They mastered. And inside the hollow planet, the shadow pulsed once more, a silent acknowledgement that humans had arrived, that they were ready, that emptiness could be filled, that impossibility could be conquered, and the next step, whatever it might demand, would not destroy them, it would define them. Humanity had been chosen, and they were ready.
The final chamber unfolded before them like a revelation, a cathedral of impossible scale, suspended in gravity-defying geometry, illuminated by a light that had no source, yet cast perfect clarity on every surface. Floating constructs rotated in precise, deliberate patterns, energy conduits pulsed with life, and spheres containing ecosystems, technologies, and dormant civilizations hovered mid-air, waiting for human interaction. The resonance of the hollow planet throbbed through the void, through the hull of the Ardent, through the very minds of the humans inside, and they understood instinctively this was the culmination, the ultimate test, and the greatest gift. Elara stepped forward, her team behind her, hearts pounding, minds sharpened, senses attuned to the rhythm of the planet's awareness. The shadow loomed above, immense and fluid, its presence brushing against every thought, every intention, every emotion. It was no longer just observing, it was gauging, measuring whether humanity could rise to mastery, whether they could wield incomprehensible power responsibly, whether they could transform emptiness into creation without succumbing to arrogance or fear. Lieutenant Rhee's voice trembled. "Captain, this is beyond comprehension. We could create entire civilizations, fleets, even star systems. The potential, it's limitless." Elara's gaze hardened. "And that is exactly why the Krylax will never forgive us. They cannot see potential where they only see emptiness. But humans, we thrive there. We adapt, we create, we survive." The floating constructs responded to human presence, to thought, to intent. Pathways aligned, energy conduits pulsed, and suspended spheres rotated gently, as if acknowledging the arrival of a species capable of understanding and responsibility. And then the hollow planet spoke, not in words, not in sound, but in a direct impression on every human mind. "You have proven understanding, responsibility, and vision, but creation carries consequences. Are you prepared to bear them?" Elara's chest tightened with the weight of the question, yet her voice was steady. "We are human. We have endured, adapted, and overcome what no other species could. We will bear the responsibility of creation, the weight of possibility, and the burden of vision. We will rise." The shadow pulsed, immense and deliberate, and for the first time it withdrew slightly, as if granting permission. The chamber responded instantly. Platforms stabilized, energy grids aligned, suspended spheres shifted into optimal positions for interaction. Humanity had been recognized, chosen, and trusted. Lieutenant Rhee exhaled, awed. It's letting us shape it." Elara's mind raced with possibilities. The hollow planet could store fleets, entire civilizations, energy beyond measure, and knowledge that spanned eons. They could create, they could preserve, they could experiment, and they could learn from what had come before.
But the weight of it all pressed upon them. Every choice would matter, every action would have consequences, and the Shadow's awareness was absolute. And then came the first act of human ingenuity. Using instinct, intuition, and a fraction of the data the hollow planet had offered, Elara and her team synchronized their actions. They activated a dormant construct, realigned energy conduits, and merged ecosystems within the spheres into functional, sustainable environments. The hollow planet responded immediately, pulsing with acknowledgement, corridors stabilizing, floating platforms aligning, suspended energy grids harmonizing. They had taken empty potential and shaped it into functioning, coherent systems. The resonance surged through the chamber, and the shadow shifted, immense and deliberate, a silent observer transformed into a patient participant. Outside, the Krylax Dominion erupted in fury and disbelief. "They cannot survive this. They are meddling with forces beyond comprehension," one envoy screamed. But inside, humanity did not flinch. They had been underestimated for millennia. They had been feared, mocked, dismissed, and yet here they stood, shaping emptiness into creation, mastering what no empire had dared to touch. The hollow planet pulsed again, as if measuring the final piece, morality. Could they wield creation responsibly? Could they preserve life, energy, and knowledge without falling to hubris? Elara reached out to the central nexus, feeling the resonance coil within her chest. "We will not falter," she thought. "We will honor what has been entrusted to us. We are human. We adapt. We survive. We create. And we will master this." The shadow pulsed one final time, immense, deliberate, patient. Then it receded, allowing humans to move freely, shaping, creating, learning, and mastering. The hollow planet had chosen them. Humanity had responded, and in that moment a new chapter began. Not for one species, not for one empire, but for the galaxy itself, forever changed by the audacity, ingenuity, and resolve of humanity. Outside, the Krylax Dominion could only watch, powerless, as humans turned what they had dismissed as nothing into something unimaginably vast, functional, and alive.
they had underestimated humanity once again, and once again humanity had risen. The resonance pulsed one last time, like a heartbeat echoing through the hollow sphere, a promise, a warning, and an acknowledgement. Emptiness had been transformed, possibility realized, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not only survived, they had transcended, they had mastered, they had become the architects of the impossible.